Hello, and welcome back to As the Cauldron Bubbles podcast. This is your host, Jasmine, and my wonderful, beautiful, talented, skilled, and kind co host.
Hello, it's Hale.
And we have a very special guest tonight.
Hello, it's Ashley Allers.
We fancy here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Very highfalutin.
Highfalutin.
Very high tech.
Yes.
So, Ashley, we're going to interview you a little bit about your path and your craft and how you came to those paths. So, tell us a little bit about like your background, like growing up.
So, growing up, I was raised with Northern Baptist Christians. So we went to church on Sundays, and that was just about it. But definitely no witchcraft was allowed. That was not allowed. I remember I was trying to get the spell book, the Harry Potter spell book, in the 3rd grade, and that was the first time my stepdad was like, "Oh no," and he was all up in arms, and I was
Can't have the Harry Potter spell book. No, shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my childhood, and I was like, all right. But they were so upset about it. I was like, why are you so upset about it? If it's not real, why are you freaking out? And so it's like, well, it must be a little bit real. So, that's why I started kind of looking into it a little bit. But, yep, I started doing the,
Doing the what?
The what? This is an audio recording here,
I'm
man.
sorry.
It's an audio recording, Dave.
Yeah, so we got the spell book anyway. It was fun, did the thing, and yeah, that's my childhood.
Okay, so
Harry Potter spell book.
So like growing up, what were some, religious customs, if any, that like you did with your family, or like what did that look like for you growing up with what your spiritual or religious views were?
So, I had several deaths in the family young. The first death in my family, my aunt, she died when I was 6 years old. And the tradition was we just, did the viewing and the funeral, and then we buried her, and that was that. And I had actually found out the day before we buried her that she wanted to be cremated, and we buried her anyway. And I remember that day, that was like so traumatic for me. That was like the first day where I was like, this is not right, So that was pretty rough. But then, just kind of growing up, we did the Christmas thing, the regular Christian Christmas thing. We went to church on Sundays, and that was just about it. But yeah, it was pretty crazy to experience that, and to have so many deaths in the family, and to watch them request specific things that were against our traditional religious views.
Like what?
Like my aunt wanted to be cremated, and my grandmother wanted some song played. I don't remember. I was so young. She wanted a song played at her funeral, and it just wasn't like a very Christian or a religious song, and it wasn't played. And it was just, that was the one thing that stuck with me, that it wasn't played. And I was like, we're just not honoring her, So that was one of the things that started to make me think that this wasn't the path for me, and the phrase that made me realize that that was definitely not the path for me was that there was someone always walking with you. You know, there was always the invisible footprints in the sand next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was going through these repeated deaths in my young childhood, you know, there was no one with me. I wasn't calling anyone. I was just by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized that I had to do something. There was no one just automatically with me. I had to call someone. And I think that's when I kind of started to get into alternative views of religion when I was young, is when I had to do that and just kind of call out to my dead Nana and my aunt and everyone, you know, to just kind of be with me and to just help me through that.
Do you think that your past loved ones called to you in some way?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even this morning, my Nana had a thing about purses on the floor.
Mm.
And I lost...
Purse on the floor, never been more poor.
Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. I have such a bad habit of
Not
it.
in this family.
And she died when I was young, and I've always carried purses, you know, and she always used to get on me about that. And this morning, I had lost my debit card, and
Did you have your purse on the floor?
I had all of my purses on the floor.
Ma'am!
All of them.
Ma'am!
So I was panicking, and I was looking, and I was like, all right, you know, she likes it when my room is tidy. So I was freaking out. I put all my purses up, and then I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going out without my credit card. You know, I'm going out without my cards. And then I was getting in my car, and I felt something weird in my back pocket, and sure enough, it was in my back pocket. And she does stuff like that to me all the time.
She's just trying to keep you on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
And
She just likes
prepare,
it when I'm clean, you know? She just likes it when I'm clean.
So how would you identify your path now as an adult? Like, we talked about a little bit of your background and growing up. You said that, you know, you grew up Northern Baptist Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah.
How is Northern Baptist separate from Southern Baptist?
Yeah, I also have that question.
I think they're just a little bit less intense. They're just
Like
really
less fire and brimstone, or
more fire and brimstone just on Sundays.
oh, okay,
Yeah. Just on Sundays. Every other day, you do what you want.
okay.
You know,
But Sundays are
But
for the
Sundays,
Lord.
we take care of that shit.
Right.
It's the time to feel bad about yourself.
Right, because Baptist is very known for like the fire and brimstone. You're condemned to hell. You're a dirty sinner.
But Northern
Yeah.
Baptist, maybe you just feel really horrible about yourself with the once a week.
just one day a
Just
week.
one day a week.
Just
you know?
one day a week.
And you know, even as a young child, I did not feel okay with feeling bad about myself. Even that one day a
Shocking.
week.
Well, guess
I
what?
was not okay with it.
You don't have to feel bad for living your life
You
as
do
a
not.
human
You absolutely
being.
do not.
So I'm curious. So now, as you're an adult, let's talk about your path now. Are there any labels that you choose to identify with now as an adult that maybe in your family or your background you didn't identify with previously, but as an adult, as we kind of come into ourselves and find our own beliefs and philosophies, where do you feel like you fall? Like, and you don't have to pick a label, but like if you were to, how would you identify your religious beliefs and your practice?
Family notwithstanding.
I think right now I definitely identify as a witch. I've gone through a few different identities on my path. I started out as Wiccan. I didn't really understand what that meant. So I just kind of went with the label, as I think a lot of us do in the beginning. But as
Very
I kind
common.
of,
It's okay.
yeah, it's fine. You know, we all learn. You know, just pick our own labels.
Yeah.
You go where you want to.
And your path can grow and evolve, and that's okay.
yeah.
Because it's your path and it's your craft.
Yeah. Yeah. So now I think I definitely identify as a witch right now in my path. But I do see that changing and potentially, or growing and potentially even changing in the future. Just because I don't think you should ever close yourself off to change. You know, you should never pick one label and, you know, sew it onto yourself. That's
Life is fluid.
yeah. You gotta move with the wind. You gotta
Flexibility
move like the
wins.
waves.
Adaptability is what science would call it, but it's flexibility too.
One of my first visions that I ever had, I met my older self. It was totally wild, really unexpected. But I met her. She was amazing, and I remember she kissed me on my forehead and she said, "I love every single version between me and you." And like every time I feel myself changing, even just a little bit, I'm like, "Yep, it's time for me to be on to my next version." And I've loved myself in that past version, and I'm gonna continue loving myself in my next version. And
As you deserve. Period, too.
As I deserve, as everyone deserves, you know? We all deserve to love ourselves.
So why would you say that you identify with the label of witch? What about that speaks truth to you right now?
I think right now I identify as a witch because I'm changing and learning. To me, witch is a knowledge seeker, you know, is the person who is going out to seek knowledge and who has knowledge ready to share, but is also out to learn more and grow and to be out there, and that's what I'm all about, is to grow and learn and get better at everything that I try and that I do and that I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
I'm very much too, like, I feel like, you know, witch it's who we are, right? Like, it's a noun. It's who we are, fundamentally. But I also feel like witch is like a verb, in the sense that, like, people who practice witchcraft inherently are witches. You know, if you are practicing divination or astrology or spellcraft or dabbling, dangling, or submerging yourself completely in the occult, like, that's what a witch is.
Comes in the territory.
Yeah, and I feel like part of it is like, innately, if you are a witch, it's who you are, and so every single thing you do, no matter how mundane it is inherently witchy, because a witch is doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like when you take a shower, like, if a witch is taking a shower, chances are that shower's a bit witchy, and maybe they're visualizing things running down off of them down the drain.
Cleansing.
It's a magical shower.
Yeah.
Or even making your cup of coffee like it's an energy potion. You know what I mean? Like,
a witch does things with intent. It's all about intent. Therefore, most things you do are done with intent, meaning it's witchcraft.
Right. I mean, I think the most common custom of, like, a birthday cake, like, that's candle magic.
Yeah.
Putting candles on a birthday cake and blowing them out, as most of us here in the West, like, regardless of our religious upbringing, whether you're Jewish, Muslim, atheist, pagan, whatever, most of us have blown candles out on our birthday. And, like, that's a form of candle magic. Or, you know, when you're like 15, 16 years old at a sleepover and it's like 11 p.m. and you and your friend hold your breath until 11:12 and like make a wish. Like, that's a form of witchcraft. I think there's so much witchcraft that we as a Western American society practice and like don't actually realize that it's witchcraft. You know?
And that's one of my favorite things about witchcraft is finding things in our everyday culture that we were raised with that's like, oh, that's witchcraft right there.
I know.
I've been a witch this whole time right now.
You know? Shit.
know? Wow, I didn't even realize.
So what age were you when you felt kind of the calling of the witch? Like, when do you feel like you first felt like you identified specifically with that label of witch?
I think the first time that I truly, to myself, identified as a witch, I was probably 23 or 24. It was shortly after an abusive relationship that I had gotten out of, and I was looking for ways to kind of harmonize myself. And I'd worn my aunt's ring for years. I worn her ring for 9 years or so, and I lost it. And I didn't know what to do, so I went and I had a tarot reading, and my reader looked at me and she said, "You know you're an empath, right?" And I was like, "No."
What?
What the hell is going on?
I was like, I mean, let's talk about it, you know? So I went home, you know, I had my reading, I bought a book, I went home and just started doing some meditation and kind of learning about myself, doing some shadow work. That's what I started with. And
Shadow work is important, y'all.
yes, it is. Yep. I feel like I wouldn't know who I am without my shadow work.
Usually people don't know who they are without the shadow work, because that's part of themselves that they don't want to face.
Yeah. And that was a hard thing for me to face, was realizing that I couldn't leave my shadow behind me. That my shadow was going to follow me.
Because it's part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That my shadow's going to follow me where we're going. It's not going to get smaller either.
Mm-mm.
I'm going to have to deal with it and, you know, love it as much as I love myself. And I think that is one thing that witchcraft has definitely like helped me with.
Validate your shadow self. You will thank yourself later.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, what is your view, if you have one, of divinity? What does deity mean to you? What is your kind of philosophy on that?
So I specifically work with Diana, the goddess Diana. She, looking back on my life, she has been calling to me my whole life. I just never saw it. I never knew. My first deck of cards that I ever bought, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just went in and I was like, I'm here to get cards, you know? And I walked away with goddess knowledge cards. And I pulled one every night, and I pulled Diana, I think, 7 or 8 nights in a row. And the last night I said, no, like that's not right. Like I can't pull the same card like that many times in a row. That's crazy. So I reshuffled, and sure enough, as I'm shuffling, Diana popped out of my deck, like flew out, and I was like, okay, like, and so I did a little bit more research, and you know, I really resonate with Diana. She's the goddess of individuality, of independence, of that huntress, you know, when she sees something, she goes to get it. And I believe that gods and goddesses are what you choose to embody yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't personally believe them to be physical things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what we all put our energy into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when when I put my energy into Diana, and you know, you put your energy into Diana, you know, we create Diana, you know what I mean? And like together, if so many people do that, you know what I mean? So and then we feed on each other's energy with Diana. So that's kind of how I feel about divination and, and gods and goddesses.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And that kind of leads me to kind of my next philosophy question. What is your view of the afterlife? Like, what do you think, if anything? And, you know, there's not really a wrong answer. We're just curious as to what Ashley thinks, right? This is your interview, so you can say whatever the hell you want. But in terms of the afterlife, whatever world or worlds or experiences come after death, if any, what's kind of your take on that?
So
it's also valid to not have a take.
Yeah. Too. So I don't have a particular take on if I were to die right now, what's going to happen to me. I don't have a particular take on that. But I will say that in my experience of dealing with spirits and energies in spaces, is that I think that energy and what people call as ghosts is leftover energy of someone put so much of one particular kind of energy into one particular space that whether they're dead or alive, that energy is still there. Humans are so powerful, whether we know it or not. They're so powerful that like you can leave that energy somewhere accidentally just by putting too much energy into one particular thing. So I think that, you know, the afterlife, that if you put so much energy and you have too much energy into one particular kind of thing, like a piece of you might get left there. And when I find myself putting a lot of energy into something, I try to think about, what if I got stuck here, you know? And then I try to think about, okay, well, this is the mindset that I would like to get accidentally stuck into, you know? So that's, you know, the afterlife and after death is not something I think about too often, but I do think about after energy, you know, leaving your energy somewhere. I think that we all go through phases of life and parts of our life, and, you know, everything that we all go through, deaths throughout our life, that the end death is, you know, we've already been through it so many times, you know, we don't need to worry about what's going to happen then. It's going to happen through all of these ones that we still have to worry about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I vibe with that. For sure. So, day to day for you, as someone who identifies as witch, what does that mean for you on a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year basis? Are there any rituals or customs or traditions that you kind of subscribe to or practice in, whether it's something as simple as lighting a stick of incense for your intention, or honoring a specific holiday or astrological event, or a full-on ceremonial ritual where you're like calling quarters and invoking gods, or more of a folk magic tradition where it's like you carry a lucky rabbit's foot to the casino? Like, what does your, I guess, witchy practice look like on more of a day-to-day basis?
So on a day-to-day basis, I pull my goddess cards, my very first deck. I pull a goddess card once about every 3 or 4 days. And in every single morning, I read that card, the back of the card. Even if I've read it 1,000 times, I still reread it, because you can always relearn things.
Yeah.
Find something you've never seen before.
Yeah, a different part might hit you.
Exactly. And then I just try to kind of hold that energy with me throughout the day. And if there's a moment in the day when I'm like, man, I don't know how to encounter this. I don't know how to confront this moment. I just try to like think about that and like what I took from my card that morning. I just kind of try to flow with that. I take that energy and I flow with it. And I also have on my altar, I have a pile of my little crystals, and I pick through them, and I usually like pick a crystal out every morning. And
It calls to you.
Yep, I pick a crystal out, and every morning I just kind of like play
Which
with
one do
it.
we have today?
Yeah.
Today we've got this one. We've got the double-edged wand.
Which one is that?
We I'm not sure what it's called, but it does have a few windows in it. I think it's
May I
like
see?
it's yeah, absolutely. It's got a few different kinds of crystals in there.
It looks like jasper and quartz to me.
I
But
love
I don't
those.
quite know. I
Yeah.
love whatever it is. But I do think
I
it's...
like the shape.
I get lost in.
What do you think, Jazz? I think it's jasper and quartz.
I just get lost in these windows.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
the
'em.
real good.
It really looks like a mix because I
Yeah.
see like rainforest jasper,
Mm-hmm.
but I also feel like the windows have like some labradorite or something.
I could
Mhm.
definitely see that.
Yep, and oh,
It's a little
I also have-
shiny like that. Oh, she got something else. Is that a...
It's another fun shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's for
That's a
sure.
what?
These guys always
a
like to
fossil
walk
of some
together. This is a fossil of some type of squid. I don't remember what
Love
specifically
it.
type of squid.
I gotta show you my fossils sometime.
But this one, I got this one while I was camping in Michigan. And
They
my
did come from that
campsite-
area.
It was how I got this particular one was so crazy. So I was camping, and at my campsite right next to it was a metaphysical store, and I had seen it every day, and I was like, I'm gonna go in there.
Gotta go in.
And one day I was finally like, yep, today's the day. So I went in there and I talked to the guy, and he was like, oh yeah, I think you'll like these. And he was pointing.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I do.
You were correct.
You were right. Yep. And I picked through a few, and this
love
particular
that.
one just kind of called me out, and
May I hold
it's
it?
not as symmetrical as most of them are.
Mm-mm. But it's still...
It just called out to
It's...
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just got my first pendulum this past Monday. And I'm...
How fancy.
Oh, yes. It's
Love a good pendulum.
smoky quartz. Yeah,
Would you like to
it's
see it, Jess?
beauty.
Yeah.
But I'm a sucker for symmetrical things, that
Libra.
We
Very
love the
Libra.
balance. We love
Yes,
the balance in
I
the
do.
family.
Especially with my pendulums, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But this particular pendulum has a little chunk out of it. It's almost like a little tiny thing just took a bite out of my...
It demanded.
Mm-hmm. And the top is not quite glued on quite right onto the crystal.
It said, fuck your preferences. Take me home.
Man, I love that pendulum so much. It's not my first pendulum. It's the first pendulum that answers my questions. My other pendulum will take me on adventures. And
Good adventures are good here, okay?
Yes, they are.
Magical mystery tours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what advice would you have to new folks of the craft, of the path, new people who are identifying as witches? What sort of advice would you give them?
I give new witches the advice of, just ask questions and seek advice where you don't know, and trust your intuition. That's really what it's all about, is you and your intuition and what you think is right. Witchcraft and Wicca and everything that falls under that umbrella is so just about what you want and how you feel and what is right to you. And if you hear from someone and you're like, yeah, I vibe with half of that, you can take half of that. That's totally fine. And I totally advocate for, taking what feels right to you, because that's what witchcraft is. It's you.
It's your craft and your practice.
Yes.
And that's on period.
Po.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast. And I'm glad that we got this interview portion done. So that way, moving forward, we can have some topics to discuss.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
make sure that you like this podcast, share this podcast, leave us some feedback. And if there are any topics that you have that you would like myself and Hale and Ash to cover, comment down below. You know, we would love some feedback. So thank you guys again. And until next time, blessed be.
Blessed be.